This is a revision presentation on exchange rates. It's going to cover firstly the terminology that we use around exchange rates, and then also have a look at how we model the effect of exchange rates using the aggregate demand short and aggregate supply model. So first of all, just to define the term exchange rate. What we mean is it's the price of one currency measured in terms of another. So for example, when we talk about the exchange rate between US dollars and British pounds, what we mean is that it takes about $1.50 to buy one British pound. So some of the terminology we use, when we talk about a higher exchange rate, we could also talk about the pound becoming stronger. We could talk about an appreciation of the currency. We could talk about the pound becoming more expensive. What we mean by all of those is that the value of that pound measured in terms of foreign currency has increased. So now it's going to take more dollars to buy £1. We could also talk about a lower exchange rate. And what we mean by a lower exchange rate is the pound becoming weaker. We could also talk about a depreciation of the currency. We could talk about the pound becoming less expensive. And again here, what we mean by all of those is that the value of the pound measured in terms of foreign currency has gone down. So now you need fewer dollars or fewer euros to buy £1. An easy way to remember the effect of these changes in the currency is to use the two acronyms. So first of all, SPICED. We talk about a stronger pound, an appreciation, the exchange rate going up, and that makes imports cheaper, because now your pounds that are worth more can buy more foreign currency that you need to do importing. And it also makes exports dearer meaning more expensive. And this is because actually now it takes more foreign currency to buy the same amount of pounds to buy UK goods and services. So exports in effect have become more expensive when measured in terms of foreign currency. So the same good now costs more dollars than it did before. Exports then have got more expensive, and so we expect exports to go down. We can then just do the opposite of this and talk about the effect of a weaker pound, and then say that this means that imports become dearer, they become more expensive, because now you need more pounds to buy the same foreign good that you were importing in the past. So we expect imports then to go down. And exports become cheaper because now you don't need so much foreign currency to buy the same good in the UK, so that makes it cheaper for foreign countries to buy stuff from the UK, and so we expect exports to increase. So that then leads us through into what the various effects are. So if we're talking about a weaker pound or a depreciation, it's really got two effects. One is on aggregate demand, and we expect a positive aggregate demand shift. Why? Well, because we've got those higher exports, and because we've got more expensive imports, and so lower imports, more exports, increases X minus M, and that's of course a component of aggregate demand. But we also need to remember there's an effect on costs of production as well. Depreciation is going to increase costs of production. And it's going to increase costs of production because imports are going to get more expensive. That's the kind of imports dearer part of WPIDEC. Those imports become more expensive, and lots of firms in the UK have to import things in order to produce. So, factors of production, raw materials, things like that. And a weaker exchange rate makes those raw materials more expensive. That increases their cost of production, and so we get the negative leftward shift of the short run aggregate supply curve. What about the effect of an appreciation? So this is when we have a stronger currency, a higher exchange rate. Well, this time we get a negative aggregate demand shift. We get the negative aggregate demand shift because the more expensive pound makes it more expensive for foreign countries to buy goods and services from the UK, and so we expect to see exports fall. And at the same time now, people in the UK are finding importing cheaper, so they do that more, and so we see an increase in the level of imports. And so overall X minus M becomes more negative. It's a component of aggregate demand. We get the negative shift of the aggregate demand curve. We've also of course got another shift in short run aggregate supply. This time, because the pound is worth more, it means that imports have in effect become cheaper for UK firms. So anything they're importing as part of production is now cheaper. That reduces their costs of production, and lower costs of production leads to the positive short run aggregate supply curve shift. Now you would have seen in each of those cases that we had shifts in both aggregate demand and short run aggregate supply. Most of the time in multiple choice, the examiner wants you to focus on the aggregate demand shift. And so a really good simple rule of thumb for when you're quickly doing multiple choice questions is to remember that a weaker currency will increase aggregate demand and that a stronger currency will reduce aggregate demand. Going through those quick rules of thumb will allow you to do multiple choice questions quicker rather than having to work through, for example, spiced each time you're trying to work out the effect of an appreciation of the currency.